Hi everyone. Yeah, so Mark brings up a really good point here, which is talking about the intrinsic value of what you have to offer. And I think sometimes both creators and the people who are consuming it, so whether you call them readers, viewers, whatever, there is a danger that both kind of miss their value. So, for example, I see a lot of people put, say, aspiring writer or aspiring artist on their profiles. And the thing is, if you're working hard and you're producing something and you're getting it in front of people, you are not an aspiring anything. You are doing it. And especially if you're doing it on a regular basis, because that is work, it is hard, and at the very least, people should recognise the work, and you yourself should recognise the work you put in. It is not being boastful, it is not being arrogant. There is a difference between there is a difference between self-confidence and arrogance. So I think that's kind of crucial. Also, I sometimes see this with people, for example, when they are charging for things. So having a commission rate page, for example, really good. Make it clear what you're charging for. Make it clear what you will and won't do, because I think this is especially important for like things like DeviantArt. So if you don't want to do art trades, say you don't want to do art trades. If you say you're up for doing point commissions, say it, but you set it. Like, you set how much you want, you set the value of it, and people either go for it or they don't. I think that's what you have to do. I think it's very important to try and cost it out as fairly as you can do. So the best advice I would have for anyone who's kind of doing this for the first time is to look up people who are doing sort of this on a kind of similar level and try and price accordingly. So you're not sort of vastly undercutting people, but at the same time, like, there will be people on a certain level where it's like they're charging more because they're really good. And this is another thing. I think if you are a reader, viewer, consumer, whatever, please be aware of what they're doing. So the amount of work that goes into a commission, because there are varying degrees of quality. So yes, you can say, oh, well, such and such does that cheaper. Well, yes, but such and such is likely to be worse. And it is a bit like going into a Ferrari dealership and then moaning that it costs more than, like, I don't know, a Ford. Just, oh yeah, because the film came out. That's probably what was in my head. But anyway, like, you shouldn't. I think saying it, I think, is a bit crass. Even if you think it, I think it's crass. I think you have to look at what you want to do. And also, I think if you're an artist and you need to put your prices up, if you let people know in advance, that's cool. And I think be confident about it. And I think be confident in what you want to do. I see sometimes, like, people put up, like, polls for ideas and things, and I think to an extent that can be good. But be careful you don't become reliant on it. Because, like, for example, like, people saying, like, putting a poll up saying, should I put my prices up? What's the likelihood that people are going to say, oh yeah, sure, that's fine? Like, some people might. Some people, can be very sort of honest and appreciative of that, and sort of say if someone is undercutting themselves. But you've got to kind of look at that, and I think there is a layer of comments. So I'm going to talk about this a bit more, because it's coming up to Father's Day soon, and I want to talk about sort of how my dad has inspired me on the business side of and to be fair, the creative side as well. And one of the phrases that he always imparted on me, and it was one of the first ones he got in business, and I'll never forget this, which is never cry stinking fish. So the meaning behind that is, if you're in the market, don't yell out that your fish stinks. You don't want to BS either, but be a bit sensible. So yeah, thank you very much, Mark. That's a really good point. So Vargas has brought up this whole thing with the amount of money you pay for a game, and obviously at the minute, like AAA games, very expensive, and therefore something that if you invest in it, you're expecting a decent return on that investment. You want to feel like the amount of money you put in, you're getting a level of enjoyment that equates to that. And okay, this quote was originally about the Lord of the Rings Gollum game, but I think this can extend out to comics, I think this can extend out to films, I think this can extend out to a lot of things. And I think it isn't purely, say, the length of the product that you're looking at, it's also kind of the enjoyment that comes from it. Because, for example, you can have a relatively short game. So, for example, Streets of Rage 2 on the Mega Drive is not that long a game. Like, if you were to sort of do it kind of end to end, it wouldn't actually take you that long. But the soundtrack, the quality of the game, the kind of the action, the feel of it, I keep coming back to it again and again because I really enjoy it. And for me, it never gets old because it's all the things that I personally love. So I could play that forevermore and I'd be happy. So it's a relative thing. So I can't really sort of say like one thing that kind of covers all. But it is also something that I keep in mind. Like when we're putting together, say, the comic collections, or we are doing an ad package. So, for example, if someone is sponsoring us, I'm always kind of mindful of making sure people are aware that they've supported us, and to sort of try and give shout outs where I can, because I want people to think that, you know, we appreciate them sort of giving us the support. So you try and give it back as much as you can. And I think it's important to respect the people that kind of get you to a certain position. And, you know, likewise with artists, you know, they put a lot of work in, so you want to kind of make sure people have that feeling. So one of the reasons, because sometimes you do get people saying, oh, you know, I'm paying, you know, this for a comic, and it's like, well, yes, because the print costs money, and because, you know, if you want to get to a convention, it costs money. If you want to sort of do a lot of things, it costs money. But the big one for us, so as a little sort of inside baseball thing, generally speaking, we don't tend to do page rates in the traditional sense of, here's X amount of money, as an artist, there you go. So what we brought in, which I think we did this before Reynard City Chronicles, but we then sort of kept that up, was this idea of, we would put these cameo appearances in the comic, so the person paying for it gets a thing, but equally that was X sum of money that we could give directly to the artist. And that was really good because it meant, you know, more than we could typically give, and that would be in addition to cut from the crowd fund, cut from all kinds of stuff, like say merchandise, sponsorship, all kinds of stuff. And I think it's really important for me personally that we do this as much as we can, and that we extend this out as much as we can. So, you know, if we can commission more artists, we do, but that is therefore like the value of this, because I think there was someone who was like, oh, I'm not paying £3 for a download, but it's like, oh, but you're also getting this website where there's over 22 page comics, which you can still get for free. Like, they're still there, they haven't gone anywhere. The bonus issues are still there, lots of stuff still there. The videos, you've got them too. And like I say, when we do the trailers, we are hiring people to do the voice work. That is not something we do for free. So yeah, you're getting the whole thing when you put the money in. So it's a little extra, but the trade-off is massive, in my opinion. So that, for me, in terms of value of money, is that it kind of cuts both ways, in that we want to give something that will satisfy someone when they read it. So you get this full experience when you read the comic, that you enjoy it, that there's a story, but it also kind of leads into other things. I think the box sets was something that I wanted to do because I wanted to give people an option where if they wanted to read the whole thing, but they didn't necessarily want to get like all print copies or get like each individual comic, it was like, there's an option for you. And, you know, there's no right or wrong with any of these things, and I think, you know, we have got the individual copies as well, because if that's what you want to do, if you want to do it one by one, the option's there for you, and it's up to you to decide whether that option is best, or, as I say, doing like the whole thing is best. There's no real right or wrong, but Anyway, I think Vargas is absolutely right. As someone, when you're trying to deliver things to an audience, you want to give them something that's as good as possible. So it's great working with the voice actors we do, it's great working with the artists that we do, and I like to think that there's more to it than the comic, even though I love doing the comic. But like Fan Art Friday, there's different parts to the project that kind of extend it out, and hopefully everyone enjoys it. Okay, the final thing I want to talk about, Joe has brought up some really good points here with his question, and I think it's as much about the communication between artists and the people that commission them, equally how you've got to look at it in terms of what you're doing. So, for example, if you are a creator and you are looking to produce something, so you are thinking of making a comic, so this is what you want to do, I would say the first thing you do before you even think about talking to artists, don't start off with does anyone want to. It's vague, it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't really, you're unlikely to draw people in, or if you are, they're not probably going to be what you need. And like I said, I think this is better for everyone if you kind of change the process. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this as someone who sort of got it right first time. This was very trial and error. I'm saying this with the benefit of years of experience. So, and as the great Oscar Wilde put it, experience is what people call their mistakes. So, he was a bit of a smarty pants, but he was also not wrong. So, how I would recommend that you do this. So the big thing, especially if you're a writer, if you're one of those incredibly awesome people that can write and do art, you're in a very fortunate position, because what you can do is you can map out your story, you can decide, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have it all down. So for example, some people do like the shorter sort of comic strip style web comics, and in that instance you might want to sort of start off with, say, 10 ideas, but work out who your characters are, work out what you do, and like I say, obviously, like if it's a humour one, you do have to kind of look up the idea of, what's the setup, what's the punchline, and a lot of the time that comes from the characters. And I think, like I said, the best ones I've seen that sort of do it, like, say, John Esperanza with his ones, it's like the characters kind of come forward and there's like a fun thing. It's usually like a pun or like the setup, and then sort of flip it round. So there was that one he did recently. It was like, oh yeah, I reckon the boys are doing silly boy stuff, and like the final panel is them sort of in a gentleman's club playing backgammon, like dressed in a very sort of fancy way. It was like, it's a simple gag, but it was really good and really well done, and I really liked that. But that's the start. Now, often I will see with people say like, oh, I can't afford XYZ. Now there's a few things to this. Number one, if you go on DeviantArt, you can find people who do points commissions, and points commissions can be relatively cheap compared to paying with cash. Again, depending on who you ask, depending on who you go for, and if that person matches the style that you want to do and they're happy doing that with you, brilliant. There we go, best result all round. But do your research, like look at, points commissions, look through the different artists that offer it, try and find people who match the style you want to do, and then like read their sort of terms and conditions, if you like, and then get in touch with them. Because the danger is if you sort of skip a step and just sort of go straight to talking to them, and you haven't done that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been guilty of that as well, so I've thrown my hands up on that, but it does kind of set you off on a bad foot before you even begin. But it is a good way of kind of getting started. And I think what is often a good idea is to say, do like maybe a short comic or something to start off. And especially I think if you're looking to crowdfund something, because if you do something like that, with a view to doing something bigger later on, you can kind of balance it out. So you're not spending as much, but you're giving people a taste of what's to come, so that when you're asking for money, you can sort of say, well, this is what we're aiming to do. And the thing is, it's not necessarily crazy expensive. You know, there are different types of artists out there who charge different amounts. Ideally, I would say try and go, one, for the best in your budget, and two, get an artist to do something first. So, for example, we've had artists like Joe, who we mentioned earlier, who did like fan art before working on an issue, and it gives you an idea of how a person works, how they communicate with you, and it kind of cuts both ways. So it's good for you, but it's also good for them in kind of how you deal with them. And I think it's really important for both artist and commission person. It's got to cut both ways. It's got to be fair. So, for example, if you are the person that has asked for a commission, be sensible. So if you know, for example, that you want a picture for a certain time, give them more time than you think you want. Because it's not fair to put pressure on someone for something that isn't to do with them. So try and give yourself extra time as much as you possibly can. Like I say, unless someone sort of contacts you at the last minute, in which case you might want to offer a little bit extra to sort of cover that. Because again, you can have that discussion. But you've got to do that. Also, be fair when it comes to talking to people about commissions. So you want to follow up. You want to follow up if you need something, or if you're concerned that it's getting to a certain point when you want something. Give people messages. That's fine. It's a really fine line, and like I said, I have been guilty of this, and I'm not saying this as someone who's perfect. Again, trial and error, and you know, I'm hoping that you learn from my mistakes. Like, you've got to keep people in touch, but don't bug them. Don't be too aggressive with it, and past a certain point, you know if these things are working or not. But likewise with artists, you have a responsibility with this too. So the best artists I've worked with are ones who will get in touch with you and will keep you updated before you have to ask them. I mean, those people are absolutely amazing, and to be fair, I'm not even expecting that, but it is just the absolute best when they're enthusiastic, they want to do it, and they want to show you, and it's wonderful, and I love it. And, you know, when you've had someone sort of say, like, oh, this is like working on a Marvel film, and they're really up for it, I mean, that's wonderful, and I'm really chuffed with that. But, you know, I think if you're an artist, keep in mind, especially if someone's paying you, to keep people updated. Like I say, ideally before they ask, because then, you know, that's okay. And likewise, delays can happen. You know, people get sick, you know, your car breaks down, you know, there's like a holiday that you forgot had come up, you know, things like that can happen. If so, let people know. Like, it's absolutely fine, like, if a situation comes up and you get delayed. Like I say, hopefully this is something that you've both kind of left time for. But it's really important to keep people in touch as much as possible. Like I say, especially if they're paying money. And again, if you're a commission person, the fact that someone who's working on your thing is like doing something for themselves, or they comment on something on Twitter, like don't bug them. Don't say like, oh, how come you're not working on my thing? I was like, no, don't do that. Just be a bit sensible about it. Just like I say, balance. It's a bit like, say, if you're waiting to hear back from a job interview, you know, it's, if they say we'll get back to you at a certain time, then you let that kind of time elapse, and then if you don't, then you might want to nudge them a bit. But there's nudging and there's bugging. So with anything, there's a balance. what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over this again, and we're going to put a blog in along with this on Monday, because I think it's important. I think both for people who want to commission, because I think if you're looking to do something, I think keep in mind what you're going to need in order to get the top quality. If you're an artist, be prepared to cost things out. Be prepared to sort of state what you are and aren't kind of comfortable with. Try and get an idea of how quickly you can do things. It doesn't have to be perfect, because again, delays happen, etc., etc. But try and say do a practice piece before someone gives you a commission. Sort of get an idea, and again, look up if you haven't done pricings yet for your work. Try and have a look online, see what people have sort of at a similar level. Like, I'm not being rude, but like, there are different levels of experience. Therefore, like, what you commission should roughly match. And it's, like I say, it's important to sort of try and keep it as fair as possible, but equally don't undercut yourself either. So hopefully this has helped, and what I'm really hoping is that this can help everyone. So in terms of people who want to get value for money from commissioning someone or from a final product that someone is offering them, but equally from people who, like I say, we want to treat artists with respect. We want to give them the room to sort of do what they want to do. So there we go. I think that kind of covers this. If you've got any comments or questions, please comment below. Much love. Bye. Okay, so before we go, a little extra I'm going to tag on here. So I wanted to update you all because I've had a little extra bit of news regarding issue 6. So for those of you who don't know, like issue 5, there's going to be multiple stories. And of the 3 stories that are going to make up this issue, 2 have already been completed. So the awesome works by Blue Ike and Emily Bandicoot. Ellie Renard de la Fortune is working on, in effect, the main story, which is called Happy Ever After, and gotta say I'm really excited for this one. And I've got to be a bit careful with this one because, like I said, I think some people might be asking, like, when are you going to see like sort of trailers and updates and so forth. Got to be a bit careful. I mean, because there was a bit of a spoiler in the last issue. There's more in this one, so I've got to be a bit careful. So yeah, I'm just really excited, and what it's basically about is, I'm trying to think of the most sort of non-spoilery way I can describe this. So in effect, Guillermo is riding off for a face-off against Megafox. Vibes and Sal want to stop him, and complications ensue. And I'll leave it there. It's going to be a fun issue, and I'm looking forward to the reaction to this one. This is going to be interesting. So yeah, that's all I've kind of got to say on this. One more thing, actually. So contradict yourself. Yes, there are sponsorship slots. So if you would like to be featured with a main ad in issue 6, I will be including sponsorship details. It's £25 for a slot. And yeah, as well as being included in the comic, the comic is going to be sold at events like Norcon, so it's a really good opportunity in terms of getting things out there, so worth considering. And yeah, I mean, obviously we've had some amazing support so far, and we've put kind of ads up saying thank you to everyone, so a big thank you to the Hashery, who previously sponsored our One Life Left gaming con table, so very much thank you for that, and to Sars the Spaniel for sponsoring us with his game as well, which absolutely amazing. Really appreciate that support. So yeah, if you want to know more about that, there is info in the description. But yeah, I really can't wait to share this, and More info coming soon. Much love. Bye. This is really it this time, by the way. Bye.